Imagine a landmass massive enough to comfortably swallow up several major countries, making it the 18th largest nation on Earth. Yet, despite this colossal footprint, 99.7% of Mongolia is a complete, uninhabited wasteland. Almost the entire population is concentrated into a microscopic fraction of a percent of the land, huddled at the base of a single mountain range. The moment you step outside that tiny circle, the environment becomes so incredibly hostile that your chances of survival immediately plummet. The Mongolia we see today is the product of brutal geographic and historical pressures that systematically wiped out the land and squeezed the descendants of a massive empire into one single valley. The survival of this nation begins with a fight against the terrain. Wedged up near the polar zone, Mongolia takes a direct hit from Siberian winds that drive temperatures down to -50 degrees Celsius. This constant deep freeze creates permafrost, a thick, permanent sheet of ice locked inside the ground. It makes planting crops impossible, and the frozen earth shifts and cracks so often that laying down heavy infrastructure is a constant struggle. This map highlights the extent of that dead soil. Even in the few southern pockets that escape the ice, the earth is loaded with high salinity and rocky sediment. The salt content simply chokes out any attempt at large-scale agriculture. The open expanse is so abrasive that even resilient native animals, like the Bactrian camel, struggle to survive in the wild without shelter. Up north, the Kongai, Khenti, and Koviskal mountains form a jagged triangle around a valley. This massive shield blocks deadly Siberian winds, raising temperatures to a survivable -3 degrees. The peaks trap passing clouds, dropping rainfall that washes fertile minerals into the valley. Nature effectively redlined 99.7% of the country as uninhabitable, forcing human survival into one naturally fortified, fertile sanctuary, the Valley of Ulaanbaatar. The geography dictates where people can live. It doesn't explain why so few are left. For that, we have to look back to 1687. By the late 17th century, the descendants of Genghis Khan, known as the Dzungar dynasty, found themselves in the crosshairs of a vengeful Qing dynasty. Seeking to settle old historical scores, the Qing launched a systematic, brutal campaign against the Mongolians in an event now known as the Dzungar Genocide. This chart shows the staggering slaughter. Out of a 1 million population, roughly 800,000 were erased in a single historic blow. That 80% drop severed Mongolians' demographic curve, pushing them past natural recovery and crippling their ability to repopulate. A naturally hostile land had been turned into a sprawling graveyard, leaving the descendants of the world's greatest conquerors teetering on the edge of extinction. Traumatized by the near annihilation of their people, the surviving Mongolians largely abandoned their warrior past and embraced the absolute peace of Buddhism. This peace triggered an unintended demographic freeze. A massive wave of monasticism swept the culture, and by the early 20th century, 1 in 3 Mongolian men had become a celibate monk. With birth rates continuously crashing, the Soviets stepped in during the 1920s to secure Mongolian independence, a move designed to lock down a steady supply of cheap industrial labor. To breed this new workforce, the Soviet-backed puppet government engineered aggressive policies. Mothers received cash bonuses, were given free houses, and all expenses-paid vacations, while unmarried and childless citizens were slammed with punitive taxes. But the Soviets quickly realized they had a math problem. Widespread, peaceful Buddhist celibacy was a direct obstacle to their labor supply targets. Under Joseph Stalin's regime, the correction was swift and violent. The Soviets murdered thousands of peaceful monks and systematically destroyed over 1,000 monasteries, tearing down the religious culture to forcibly increase birth rates. To grow a nation's workforce, a foreign superpower dismantled its spiritual identity, trading the peace of the monasteries for brutal industrial survival. When the Soviet Union finally collapsed in 1991, Mongolia regained true independence. The population began a slow recovery, though deeply scarred by centuries of external control. Yet, even as they recover, the Mongolian people remain tethered to that single protected valley, leaving the vast majority of their sprawling nation completely devoid of human settlement. This illustrates how a nation's demographic fate is often dictated by physical borders and violent interventions entirely beyond its control. The vast, quiet expanse of modern Mongolia serves as a permanent monument to an unforgiving climate, a blood-soaked history, and the rigid demands of foreign empires.